I had a lot planned for our second day, so I'll get right into it. First of all, we'd get a bus from Venice Beach towards Hollywood. As I mentioned in my last video, buses are really reasonably priced in LA. Seems to be a flat rate of $2 regardless of distance. I wanted to check out this shop Necromance. Then from there we'd walk the rest of the way into the centre of Hollywood. After wandering around this area for a bit, we'd head towards the Museum of Death, before hiking up to Griffith Observatory in the evening. Necromance was a really cool shop, filled with taxidermy, skulls, and various animals preserved in jars. I'd love to show it, but they didn't allow photography. We did buy this little guy though. His name is Squilliam, and he was with us for the rest of the trip.
Do you know this band?
No. I should do, shouldn't I?
You should do, yeah.
Okay, what is it?
It's, Fellas.
We eventually made it to Hollywood Boulevard, where we passed by some iconic movie palaces. I sort of regret not getting a look at the interior of at least one of these, particularly the Chinese theatre. We of course had to get a photo with our favourite star. And then we gave some guy $5 to put us on the Walk of Fame. Amazing. After traipsing around Hollywood for a couple of hours, just looking around the shops and seeing what it had to offer, the next thing on our agenda was the Museum of Death. But unfortunately, like Necromance, they didn't allow for photography, so I have nothing to show. The Museum of Death is really cool though, definitely worth checking out if you're ever in the area. I believe they have the largest collection of serial killer memorabilia, so that's pretty cool, along with a bunch of skulls from humans and animals, body parts and things like that. It's interesting to say the least.
That house doesn't look particularly fun.
It looks pretty fun to me. We grabbed some snacks and started the hike up to Griffith Observatory. Not long afterwards, we realised that we were completely exhausted, so instead we sat in a park and ate the snacks we bought before heading back to the hostel. There was a vending machine back in the hostel that gave us $1 noodles, and that was our dinner tonight. We woke up the next day feeling pretty rough, and decided we needed a bit of a day off. Not wanting to waste any precious time, we used the morning to get around to some chores we'd been putting off. For example, I finally got around to sorting out my phone so that I could use roaming data in the US. Then later on that afternoon, we decided to not completely write the day off, so we took a casual stroll over to the Venice Canal, stopping off in a few shops along the way. I really liked how unique every one of these houses were. No two of them looked the same. This area is clearly less touristy and more residential, which was ideal for us, since we really needed a more quieter, laid-back day. After that, we had a walk along the Venice fishing pier and watched some people surfing. Before heading back to the hostel and getting some food in the restaurant beneath it. One of the few times on this trip we ate out in a restaurant. You know, it's bad, but I really don't even remember what I ate. I had a really nice ale, though. Our last full day in this city, I wanted to try hiking up the Ferndale Trail to Griffith Observatory again. This time we'd do that right at the start of the day, spend a few hours checking out the museum inside Griffith Observatory, and then we'd try hiking towards the Hollywood sign, which was only just over an hour's walk away. The hike up to the observatory was lovely, although it was so hot we both quickly ran out of water. Alicia struggled a little bit, as this was our first hike for a little while, and our first one since getting to America. But we pushed forward, and it felt great to finally reach the top. The views of the city from the observatory were quite breathtaking, a sea of concrete structures in front of us. If we squinted our eyes, we could even make out Venice Beach in the distance. The sheer size of this city was quite astonishing to see, especially from this height. Inside the observatory was a really interesting museum. We didn't quite realise how much was in here, and what we had planned to be a brief look around ended up quickly taking up most of the day. Before we knew it, it was 5 PM. We still had a couple hours left of sunlight, and the Hollywood sign should be only an hour's walk away. So we trekked up further into the mountains in search for this famous landmark. Although, before we knew it, the hiking trail we were on started to disappear, I guess. Google Maps showed a trail, but we couldn't see any sort of defined path. Assuming it was slightly grown over, odd for a popular hiking trail in a major US city, we pushed forward. It had been over an hour and a half, getting close to 2 hours, and light was quickly disappearing. This was pretty concerning, as apparently there were rattlesnakes around, and we couldn't exactly see where we were stepping. Not only that, but our phones were running out of battery, and we needed them to figure out a bus route back to the hostel. Eventually, we scrambled through the brush and ended up on a paved road. I actually recognized this road from the map. It should have led us straight up to the Hollywood sign, but by this point the sun had completely set and our phones were dead. We decided to follow the road back down the mountain. Even if we did get to the Hollywood sign, it would have been too dark to see anything, and we wouldn't even be able to get a photo. Feeling a bit defeated and concerned about how we would even find our way back, we bumped into a guy about the same age as us. Turned out he was from New Zealand, and he was just on his way back from the Hollywood sign too. He told us the view from behind the sign wasn't too good anyway, and we proceeded to walk back down the mountain with him. He let us borrow his phone to find directions to the nearest bus stop, and before we knew it, we were on our way back to the hostel for our last night in Los Angeles. What an adventure. Tomorrow, we'd be picking up our van and travelling over 4 hours towards Sequoia National Park.